Hello.
Hi there, Christopher. How are you doing, sir?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. I'm very appreciative. Oh, I love that edition of King Sorrow you have on your shelf back there.
Wow, it's a fantastic book. But and yeah, and that's the best way to read it because it's really tactile. It feels like you're holding the dragon's skin, so
Yeah,
it's just perfect to read it. And yeah, it's great.
very
Yeah,
cool.
you can't complain with all those books you got there in the background.
Yeah, there are a few, but
A few there.
a bit of a mess.
So listen, thanks very much for your time, and thank you so much for a fantastic book. I just finished it this morning, and I loved it. It's a fantastic ride
Oh, thank you so
from
much.
start to finish.
I honestly, uh, uh, it is so strange to say this after how long I've been doing this, but I really feel like and again, I'm not going to go through like what's my favorite book, like because every a lot of times you say this is my favorite book
Sure. It tends to be
I've
the most
written.
recent one as well. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
A lot of times you feel that way about the most recent book, but what I will say, what I keep saying about this book is it's the only time I've ever finished writing a novel, and when I finished writing it, I was kind of in love with it. Like I was so happy with it, and so usually when I finish writing a book, uh, because of the process and it's difficult and it's my process is very convoluted that I get to the end of it and I'm in this really kind of I'm more in hate with it than I am in love with it. And
Really?
I'm so
Yeah.
excited to sort of get it off my desk. I just need to have it gone. And this one felt so much like it was exactly what I wanted it to be. Um, and it was exactly the like I felt like I had gone on this ride and I usually don't feel that, and I really felt for the first time ever. Like now, of course, the book is coming out. I want everybody to love it, um, but when I finished it, I felt really content to be the one person who loved it,
Right.
and I've never felt that way before.
Without actually kind of giving any of the plot away, what specifically was it about this book compared to the previous ones that made you feel the way that you just explained there?
Honestly, I don't know exactly, but I will say I know what some of the components of it are, which is when I write these sort of what I think of as horror thrillers, I try to really find a balance of components of character and momentum and dread and invented folklore and all of these things. And I try to sort of balance them in a way that will give you all the things I want you to receive from the book without you really knowing you're getting them necessarily. And then to just sort of stick the landing. And I feel like I was so happy to set this in 1956. I was so it's somebody else pointed out that it's sort of like a horror noir novel, and it kind of
Yeah.
is because a lot of the elements of it are inspired by my love for Golden Age Hollywood cinema and
Yeah.
characters. I wanted to try to sort of take characters who might have been stock characters in one of these noir films and give them a different life and a different kind of story.
Right.
Um, and I feel like it just worked. Like I just felt really good about accomplishing the things that I set out to accomplish. I guess it's hard to, you know,
Yeah.
it just
As a
worked
word.
for me.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned there the setting. That was one of my first question. You said set in very specific year, 1956. I mean, you mentioned there that you love golden oldies, but
Yeah.
was there any specific reason why that year?
So I was looking for a time. I mean, I guess when I had the initial idea, it was very important to me that they be forced to travel on the ground.
Right.
And it was important to me that there be no that it feel enclosed and therefore not in touch with the outside world. So I knew right off the bat that I wanted it to take place prior to the advent of cell phones and beepers and anything
Oh,
else
yeah.
similar to that. Um, because I don't think you can have the intimacy that takes place in this novel with the characters in the position that they're in. And and I think that that's the only way to develop the kind of relationships that I wanted in this book is to have that sort of forced, enclosed intimacy of being on this train while also fleeing horrors, right?
Mhm.
Um, but 1956 also, because Malcolm, the main character, is a Korean War veteran who's recently come back from the war. So I thought, okay, I want the war to have just ended.
Right.
Um, and I also wanted it to still be conceivable that Violet, his sister-in-law, who's sort of, I guess, the other main character in the book, um, could have been like a nightclub singer in Chicago prior to the beginning of the story and all of this. And so it was this thing about it was either go back to the end of World War II or have it be the end of the Korean War. And I felt like the end of the Korean War gave me an ability to have it have a more modern feeling.
Right.
So it was one or the other. The choice, based on what I wanted out of the story, it was going to be one or the other of those things. And I felt like 56 was a better choice for the kind of people that they were going to be,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, completely. Yeah, and also you mentioned there that one of the main protagonists is called Malcolm in the book, who's he's a vet from the Korean War. But he's not a hard as nails typical vet that we're used to, and he's very sensitive. That was obviously very important for that to work with the other character, Violet. Was that always from the get-go you wanted a kind of an ordinary man who had kind of been thrown through the war, the kind of the throes of war, but at the same time had managed to kind of retain his sentimentality, if you will?
In one of my other lives here, I also write a lot of comics and other things involving Hellboy.
Right.
And the thing that I always talk about when I'm talking about talking to Mike Mignola, the creator of Hellboy, and talking to other people about writing Hellboy, is that regardless of who he is and what he does, at the end of the day, he's just a guy. And when you're dealing with a character who is just a guy, he's not a hard ass. He's
Yeah.
not, I mean, he can be. This is the thing about Malcolm, right? As a character, he's been through the war, he has seen combat. He can be a hard ass.
Yeah.
But unlike what we know from this, not every person who came back from serving in combat suddenly was devoid of all of their other characteristics as human beings, right?
Yeah.
Um, but even if you go back again, we're talking about classic film. Even if you go back and watch films where sort of Robert Mitchum plays a character sort of like this, although this wouldn't be a Robert Mitchum character probably. Um, there's depth there. There's more to it than just what's on the surface in the good stories. And
Hmm.
so for me, it was important that Malcolm be capable, but also that he be complicated,
Yeah.
like because at the end of the day, he's just a guy.
Hmm. Yeah. And then the same with Violet. Violet, I mean, you mentioned there the kind of job that she'd worked in previously. That really kind of informed that character and the way that she can read people, which is kind of the yin to the yang. And I'm guessing that was very much what you were going for with Violet's character, no?
Yeah, again, I thought about her as one of these sort of nightclub singer classic characters from both film noir and from the sort of mystery novels of that time, but also as more than that. And so, you know, Violet, actually, I've read a lot of biographies of actresses from that era,
Right.
right? From the 30s, 40s, 50s, and what I find sort of consistently is how complicated their lives were and what led them to the stage and all of that. And the thing about Violet is, she's a character who um, was poor and lived rough and ended up doing one of the jobs that you could do as a woman if you didn't want to be constrained by the cultural mores of the time necessarily, which is she became a singer because she had that talent. But what she really wanted was the life she never had when she was young, or she never saw when she was young. She wanted to have this sort of like quiet, happily married life. She wanted kids. She wanted like the kind of life she had dreamed about. But of course, that is not what she got. And so, yeah, It's uh, yeah, I think talking about it now like this is reminding me of why I was so happy with this book because I really
Right.
felt, uh, you know, I felt like I was in these characters and understood them better than I ever have.
Uh-huh. And but coupled to that, I mean, obviously, there's another character, what the one of the brothers, who
Mhm.
I don't want to give anything away, but it's very much a case of we're inside the skin of this guy who he's not very likable, and he kind of he can feel a new sense of power and lust for more power. Um, I'm quite curious, was that very specifically? I mean, that felt very contemporary, very timely to me for certain kind of like pushing certain buttons of what's going on right now. I'm quite curious if that was something that was sparked because of kind of what's going on right now or not.
I think if anything, it's just a reminder that, nothing that we're going through right now, nothing that we're seeing right now, and I'm happy to talk about politics, by the way.
Okay, no, yeah,
Nothing, yeah, nothing that we're seeing right now is new.
mhm,
It's got a new skin maybe, but it's not
yeah,
new, and so you know there have always been people who, um, given the opportunity to have power, will indulge their basest instincts, regardless of whether they have, you know, um, malicious influences around them or malignant influences around them, right? So, I think there are those people everywhere, and we spend our lives just hoping that we are not one of them. That given the opportunity, that we would be Malcolm and not go the other direction.
yeah. I'm talking about that character. It must have been quite a complicated balance to kind of to 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 juggle between this new power that he's kind of lured by, but at the same time, kind of trying to follow a moral compass of sorts. Was that must have been a really tricky balance, particularly with that character?
Yeah, no, I mean it is tricky, but it also is, just thinking about, human nature and the strength or weakness of any individual. I mean, this is, you know, nobody really knows who they are until they're tested, until
Yeah.
who your internal identity might be is tested with either some with by some outside force or circumstance, um, and
Uh-huh.
I think a lot of us are in various countries are being tested right now, and a lot of people are showing that they're not who perhaps they thought they would be. Um, yeah,
Yeah, no, that brings me to one of the questions actually that I was let me see if I can find it. You've just thrown me off course, but there was yeah that what was it now? I can't, it'll come up later on. Don't worry, I lost it.
that's all right.
No, but so but also the mother. It's not a spoiler that the mother dies early at the beginning of the story, and we know that they've got to get the mother from A to B. It's quite
Right.
curious. I read. I don't know if you've read Paul Tremblay's most recent book.
Yes,
Um,
I have
yeah,
now. Yeah,
well, I read that just before this one, so it was almost like a great double bill. But I'm quite
yeah.
curious. The mother, although she dies at the beginning of the story, she's omnipresent. She's there all the time. We're always very, very aware that she's there, which I think is really important for this story to work as well as it does. How difficult or how easy was it for you to keep her presence within the story from start to the end?
Well, even without a lot of the elements that come along, and I don't mind giving a couple. First of all, her body's in a crate, and they have to ride in the baggage car with her remains. That's part of the agreement. Um, but also, Malcolm occasionally is hearing music, piano music, from inside the crate, which
Yeah.
of course shouldn't be happening, and he doubts his mind or his ears at that point. So, so she's omnipresent in that sense, but she's also omnipresent because every every part of who he is and who his brother is and who his sister is informed by who their mother was. And so everything that happens and everything that unfolds comes from this promise that he has made her as she's dying, um, and from who he is, which is all about, anytime you're writing a story about the recent death of or imminent death of a parent, um, it's always going to be, um, you know, the atmosphere of that story is always going to be steeped in the influence of that parent.
Yeah. Also, I mean, there's something that really struck a chord with me. The mother said that she always wanted to be a person to her kids first, and then a mother second to that. And I'm quite curious. I'm guessing that was possibly very much one of the main seeds for the story. It's a very stern statement. I'm quite curious if that came from a very kind of personal place.
Well, I
If
mean,
I'm,
a lot of this comes from a personal place. My mother passed 5 years ago, and Maggie in the book is not my mother, and Malcolm is not me. But a lot of the introspection, the thoughts about narcissism, the thoughts about parenting, and all of that stuff, and the responsibility or lack thereof of
yeah.
a child to their parent, and a parent to their child, that's all sort of therapy in many ways for sure.
Hmm.
Um, but that said, it is interesting. I mean, again, like I could go through the whole book and say like 95% of this stuff, of these observations, don't really have anything directly to do with my relationship with my mother, but the source is there. The seed is from that relationship.
Hmm.
But and that's the interesting thing about Maggie, right? I mean, is that I think in many ways there are so many things that are referred to in the book that are certainly not admirable things for a parent to have done, although in large part she was a perfectly fine mother to them for the
Yeah.
most part. Um, but when she says that, she always wanted to be a person first to them instead of a mother. I think in some ways that defines her character as a mother, because I feel like it tells you everything you needed to know. It was always about her and
Yeah.
the perception of her rather than about taking care of her kids.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Uh-huh. And it's quite curious. A lot of the horror novels that I've read of late, they've left me wanting to share a lot more, especially with my kids and my wife. This is very much the same kind of thing because it really kind of emphasizes the secrets that are there that we shouldn't really keep
Right.
from each other. And it really kind of made me want to kind of to speak more and kind of open up more with my, especially with my kids. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we all do. One of the things I say so often when I talk to readers at events is, if you look around the room, every single person in that room has something sort of bubbling under in their lives, something sort of simmering. And all it takes is some external catalyst to make it sort of boil
Yeah.
over. And the beginning of any of these stories is always going to make the things boil over for the characters.
Yeah. You're going to
At
find
least
something that resonates with you from the book. Exactly. Yeah.
exactly.
Uh-huh. 100%. I've just found what I was going to say to you before. I mean, you mentioned about power and kind of the pursuit of power we were talking about before. I'm curious whether you wrote kind of the brother's journey, Alice's journey, whether you thought you wrote it with the idea that power can change people, or was it more a case of was it more a case of you kind of you wrote this character in the sense that gaining power is more kind of it's revelatory and that it kind of reveals what was already inside you, which is what you mentioned earlier.
I mean, I think both things are true. I think gaining power, uh, and money and all kinds of things can really change you. Um, but I think most of the time when it changes you, it's because those elements of you were waiting there,
Yeah, you're
to be
prone
changed
to.
and have
Yeah.
been revealed to you. And Elias is a character who, has already at the beginning of the book, he's an inveterate gambler and drinker and party guy who fell in love and brought his wife home and got bored very quickly and left her there with his mother to go back to the life he had before without any care for her, or for his mother, or for the rest of his family. He's a very selfish guy. It doesn't mean he's necessarily unkind when he encounters the people who supposedly are his loved ones,
Mhm.
but he's always going to, in a way like his mother, but a different facet. He's always going to choose himself,
Sure.
and so that's about. Elias is going to choose himself, and if you take somebody like that and give them, you know, strength, let's say, because a lot of times people like that are inherently a little weak.
Yeah.
If you give them strength, it gives them sort of courage to be the worst version of themselves. Um, so yeah, so I think it's an interesting question. The other thing, by the way, is I also think about um, there's a line in a song called "Am I Losing" by a band called Lynyrd Skynyrd, who did
Right.
Freebird and Freedom Alabama and all those things. And the line says, "It's so strange when you get just a little money. Your so-called friends start to act just a little funny. Uh, they'll blame you, but I'm not the one that's here to blame. It's you, my friend, who's really changed."
You got
So
that well
sometimes,
memorized.
yes, sometimes it's not the person who's got the new power, but the people around them who don't like the fact that the dynamic is different,
Right.
or you know what I mean, and the dynamic changes and all that. But so you never can tell. But I always think it's fascinating to show, what people are really like when you sort of pull off the mask.
Mhm. I'm really curious that you mentioned the music because music there's certain needle drops in the book. I'm quite curious how much music plays a role in your writing process rather than the actual book itself, in your writing process. Because a lot of writers of late, at the end of the book, they mention kind of inspirations, maybe other books, other movies, and also songs and musicians. So I'm quite curious what kind of music you listen to when you maybe trying to put yourself in certain people's skin or in
Um,
a certain story.
yeah, I mean, I think it depends on my mood and whether I want to change my mood at the time. It also depends on if I'm feeling if I'm feeling like what I'm writing is lackluster. I'll often put on, Flogging Molly, or I listen to Frank Turner a lot,
Right.
um, and I'll put something on that's going to hype me up a little bit. Um, but when I'm in the sort of groove and it's going well, uh, a lot of times I listen to classical music. I listen
Right.
to one of my favorite artists is Glenn Hansard of the Frames.
Right.
So I'll listen to Glenn Hansard when things are going well and in the vibe, but sometimes I'll put on the Frames because it's a bit more bombastic. Some of the songs, if I need a lift. Um, but I do listen to all kinds of things, and I used to. I think how in the groove I am will determine whether or not I can listen to something I know the lyrics to.
Right.
Because if I know the lyrics, then I'll want to have my mind singing along,
Yeah.
and
Rather
that's
than
very hard,
focusing. Yeah. Sure.
right?
I know exactly what you mean.
So
Yeah.
it really depends on what I'm writing on that I know the lyrics to. I don't tend to listen to things that are necessarily fun.
Right.
I mean, they're great music, but not necessarily fun.
Not helpful for the writing process. No. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, like originally the music that is referred to in the novel was originally Claire de Lune,
Right.
uh, because I think it's maybe the most beautiful piece of music ever written. But it was just too kind of slow, and it didn't match the tone of what I was trying to go for.
Right.
So
Uh-huh.
I reached for something that would be more of the moment, for Maggie to Have is her favorite song and all of that. So
Brilliant. So, I mean, talking of the ups and downs, I mean, you mentioned that you listen to different types of music. This book, it just doesn't stop going from like the sentimental moments to full blown action. And how do you juggle that to keep it kind because the sentimentality can really slow things down. I mean, I know it's a difficult question to answer, but it's
yeah.
like this book and the previous ones that I've read by you, they just brilliantly kind of seamlessly blend together this action, then it suddenly stops, and there's all this kind of sentimentality that comes through the for like the next sort of 10, 20 pages, and then it goes straight back into the action again. How do you balance that?
I think it's just having done it for a long time.
Sure.
And I feel like, when you're in the sort of terrifying moments and action set pieces, they don't matter unless you care.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, and so I want to explore the characters, but I don't want to do it to the detriment of the momentum of the story. And
Yeah.
so it is about sort of the judicious selection of details and the things that you want to, excuse me, drop into a scene. Um, and and yeah, it's carefully done. And I refer to this kind of story structure as just playing Jenga in many ways.
Right.
You want to pull something out here, but you want to put something else in here so it'll still support what you want the story to accomplish. Um, and it is, the novel I'm writing right now, I'm feeling really good about it. I'm getting close to sort of finishing this draft, and then I'll go back and I'll rework it. And one of the number one things that I'll be doing while I'm reworking it is making sure, not that I have, sometimes I'm making sure I don't have too much, but in this case, it's making sure I have enough um, information about the characters and their relationships and contact, and as you say, sentiment between the characters, so that the readers will feel who they are and understand who I like and care about what happens to them. Um, I don't remember who it was, but I think this is the first time I said this was maybe earlier this year or late last year to um, another writer. And I said, the trick is you have to make the reader care about the character and then make them hurt for it.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Right.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And I say that, sort of teasingly as if I'm like a sadist. And I think you have to be a little bit of a sadist in this case, but it's also because that's what makes the story good.
Yeah.
You have to feel it. So,
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh. And I was gonna say now. So yeah, so and also, I mean, you mentioned right at the beginning, you said that you wanted it to be set kind of you didn't want them to be flying through the air. You wanted it to be set on the ground in a claustrophobic setting, which is great for you to be able to, especially the sentimental parts, because they've got to sit with each other for a lot of the time. But I'm guessing that for the action pieces, that was more complicated in kind of closed, confined setting, no?
um, yes and no. In some ways, it becomes more complicated when they're off the train.
Right.
Um, but no, it didn't really feel that complicated to me because it requires mm, making it more difficult means you have to focus more, and it requires more attention to sort of build these scenes together and the momentum and how the things unfold and escalate, and the sort of danger level sort of escalates as you go. um, Somehow that yeah, in some ways that was easier than once
Yeah.
they're off the train. uh,
Right.
so yeah, and I think also because when they're on the train, uh, it's such a great opportunity for you to. I mean, again, I don't want to give away scenes, but there are scenes on the train that are some of my favorite scenes I've ever written. And ironically, my I don't think they're especially gory, but my wife and my agent both said, "Oh, that book was
Oh
so
no,
gory,"
yeah. It does go there
and I was like,
sometimes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
"Oh, okay." Um, but I don't even notice it when I do it because I'm just telling the story.
Uh-huh. Y-
You know,
Do you have a kind of a barometer of the gore? You know, I mean, you said that you didn't find those particularly gory. Do you kind of have a barometer, or does you ready to set a barometer for
oh,
you?
there's, the thing is, like, there are times when I'm like, the book I'm writing right now, I don't think is nearly as gory. It's got all kinds of crazy shit going on, but I don't think it's not nearly as gory. But I wasn't paying attention to the gore level because I was literally, as I said, just telling the story. This
Yeah,
is what happens. Um, but there's a moment in my novel Ararat, when this character is possessed by a demon and he's attacking this guy, and he rips the guy's lower jaw off, and the bone is sticking out, and he stabs him to death with his own jaw, um, which is really disgustingly violent and gory. And while I was writing that, I did sort of chuckle to myself a little bit and think, well, this is really kind
maybe
of
I've gone a
over
bit
the
too
top.
far. Yeah,
Well, it stayed in the book, um, but I guess I just don't. I see it in my head, like as cinema in many ways,
yeah,
and so in my head, this is what happens.
yeah, absolutely. And I was talking of cinema. I mean, you have so many projects on the go for movies. So I can't. So I have to ask you, of course, ask you about those. I think you've got at least three, if I'm not mistaken. Is it
Yes,
this
there
book,
is.
right? Carry Me to the Grave, Road of Bones, and The House of Last Resort. All
Yes,
three in the
yes.
works. How are they
And
going?
again, I wish I had updates on literally any of them.
Yeah,
Obviously, Carry Me to My Grave is the most recent, because the book is not even out yet. It'll be out around the time that this gets posted. But that has been optioned by Lionsgate for Francis Lawrence to
Francis Lawrence,
direct. I'm
Constantine, I Am Legend.
so
I love.
excited because
Yeah,
Francis Lawrence
a fantastic
is the
director.
perfect director for this book to be adapted,
Yeah,
because he does these extraordinary sort of action pieces, but he also does real horror
yeah,
and emotional character horror. So he's great, like the perfect choice for this. Um, the House of Last Resort. I'm working on the next draft of the screenplay myself. That's one I'm
yeah.
adapting for Outlier, which is Michael B. Jordan, his company, his production company. And Road of Bones is with Sony, with Scott Derrickson and C. Robert Cargill adapting.
Fantastic people behind
And
all of
I
them.
have no idea what. I think we're just waiting to find out what's going to happen. And
Uh,
so I'm in that sort of horrible gray area where it's like, come on, let's go make
what's
all
going
these
on with my
movies.
books? Yeah.
Yeah,
You, I
exactly.
mean, you mentioned that you couldn't imagine someone like Robert Mitchum playing Malcolm. I'm quite curious. Obviously, there's no cast has been revealed. There's not been no cast or anything. But what kind of could you imagine someone playing
In my
Malcolm?
head, and this is the thing, I want somebody who looks like he would be a guy from that era,
Huh?
um, and could pull it off, and also for Violet. And so I have had this conversation, and weirdly, I thought, like, if you could get Tom Holland and Zendaya to play Malcolm and Violet, I think they would be amazing,
That actually sounds pretty good to me. Yeah,
because they look like they could have stepped out of
yeah.
that era.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I had other thoughts about other potential, you know. So yeah, I mean that would be amazing, but I don't think I don't think that's happening. But
You never know. I mean, look at the names you've got
it's
already
very early.
involved.
It's very early. Yeah,
Yeah. No, but I mean, you've got some fantastic names involved in all three. So I mean,
yeah.
there's sure to be a great cast. But so before I let you go, there's something I mean, I cannot talk about how prolific. I mean, horror's always been prolific, but right now, especially movies and adaptations from horror books. So I'm quite curious. There's also been a lot of horror authors who published a book independently that's been picked up by one of the big five. So I'm quite, and a lot of those came initially from Reddit and things like that. So I'm quite curious if this new kind of torrent of talent has made your approach to writing change in any way based on kind of the way that they write?
Yeah, no, it definitely hasn't.
No.
Um, except to say that I'm constantly inspired. I'm constantly reading. I read and blurb debut authors all the time. I actually make it a point to make sure that a good chunk of the blurbs that I give are to debut authors.
Right.
And so I'm reading and absorbing all of the sort of younger writers and newer writers as I go. So I'm sure that that does have an influence.
It rubs off
But
on you. Yeah.
in general, no. I'm just thrilled that horror is having its moment. Finally, I think for the first time in 35 years,
Yeah.
it's getting the attention
And
that
it's
I think
come
it
back. Yeah,
deserves.
it's
And
almost
I
like the
think
80s all over again. Yeah.
you know what, it's better than the 80s, and I'll tell you why real quick. I mean,
Uh-huh.
we're in the real new golden age of horror, and that is because back then publishers wanted to horror was succeeding, so they wanted to publish as much horror as they could. So they got a bunch of people who were not horror writers, didn't care about horror, to write horror novels for
Right.
them. And they got a bunch of authors who were really bad and published their horror novels as well. So all of a sudden, the market was flooded with great books, but also not great books. And a lot of people who were reading were like, oh, maybe I don't like horror as much as I thought I did because I'm reading all
Right.
these books and a lot of them I don't really like. And I think that's what caused the crash.
Right.
Then we had 30 years of authors still loving to write horror and learning how to do it really well in small press and all these things where there were no gatekeepers to prevent success for diverse voices and so horror became this thing that was not just about middle-aged white guys writing about returning to their childhood hometowns because they inherited their granddad's house and that
Yeah.
sort of book. And so all of a sudden, when horror took off again, we are the most diverse, the most interesting, and genre out there. But also, we have such a deep bench of all these great writers. So, unlike last time, horror is ready. So now you can pick up, based on your tastes, like all kinds of different things in horror, and they're still great.
Yeah.
So I think we're in good shape for quite a while, and it makes me super happy.
There you go. No, fingers crossed. And that's the perfect way to end the interview. So listen, Krista, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you again for a fantastic read. And I
Thank you,
wish you the
Howard.
best of luck with the release, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very
All right.
much.
Really nice to speak to you. And I hope to speak to you again sometime soon.
Take care.
All right. All the very best. Cheers now. Bye now.